The following program is a Town of Colonie television production of the William K. Sanford Town Library.
Welcome to Getting to Know You. My name is Joe Nash. Today we're going to be talking about immigration and refugees. We have with us Sara Lowry. She's from the Albany office of the U.S. Committee for Refugees and Immigrants. And we also have Assemblyman John McDonald from the 108th District. Now, John, we've talked before. I think I have it right this time. Your district is all of Cohoes, all of Rensselaer, parts of Albany and Troy. Is that?
That's
Did
correct.
I finally get it?
Yep. And by the way, let's not forget Waterville East, Green Island, Waterford, and North Greenbush. Okay.
I messed it up again.
That's okay. No, you're good, Joe. You're fine. 131,000 people in total. That's what we remember.
And so we're going to be talking about immigration and refugees, and also with the legislature, how they try to help these groups. So Sara, the group is called the U.S. Committee for Refugees and Immigrants. It's been around for over 100 years. It goes back actually to the Ellis Island days, and you guys help refugees and immigrants get settled in the U.S. You provide a wide variety of services. You're one of the attorneys. Well, why don't we start with these two terms? Why don't you tell us the difference between a refugee and an immigrant, and I don't know, how do people end up in that sort of category, I don't want to say category, status, and what are some of the misconceptions about those statuses?
Yeah, so the immigrant is a catch-all phrase that covers many different statuses and types of migration patterns. Within that, you have refugees who are fleeing their home country because they're being persecuted on account of their race, religion, political opinion, or social group. And because of this persecution, they are unable or unwilling to avail themselves to the protection of their home country.
Okay, and then so what are some of the, they probably go all over the place, but what are some of the reasons perhaps they would choose the United States?
Absolutely. So typically, I mean, many people would like to choose the United States. That's really not how the pattern ends up working. So let's say you have a civil war in the Democratic Republic of Congo. They flee on foot, their villages are attacked, and they cross borders into surrounding countries in Africa and settle in refugee camps.
Okay, and then just quickly, two other categories that people you help besides refugees, immigrants, I don't know, maybe these are part of that, but you have unaccompanied migrating children and then survivors of human trafficking. Do they fall into those two categories? Are they kind of separate, or?
Yes and no.
Okay.
Immigration is nothing if not complex and nuanced. But yeah, you have unaccompanied minors. You hear all the time in the news coming up through the southern border of the U.S. And victims of trafficking looks very different depending on where you are. So many people like to focus on sex trafficking, but there's also commercial trafficking as well.
Okay, and then I want to get the Assemblyman in before we go back to you. But John, the New York State Assembly, there's a million committees. There's no committee or anything on immigration, but you guys do things for immigration. What are some of the things you guys?
A couple different things. One, obviously, we actually fund about $2 million to the refugee centers throughout the state. And it started maybe 4 or 5 years ago with really the members from the upstate larger cities, myself and Pat Fay in Albany, now Congressman Brindisi in Utica, Sean Ryan, who's a colleague of mine in the Assembly in Buffalo, Harry Bronson in Rochester, Joe Morelli as well, who's now a congressperson as well, because the cities usually, not always, tend to be the new home for many of these refugees, and we want to provide them the proper supports. And at the same token, we also provide through Albany Law School defense funding. A lot of these individuals are actually trying to, once they become acclimated due to the work of the center, they try to move towards citizenship, and there's a process. And it's a process that's not easy. And I do want to kind of, Sara talked about the technical details, right? And she's absolutely right. It's not that simple. But going to step back just a little bit, and because it's an important distinction. Depending on what political lens you want to look at, they're either undocumented immigrants or they're illegals, right? This is the political discussion. I look at them as human beings, just like the refugee center does, and I think most people do. The unfortunate part is because of a failed system at the federal level, which it doesn't matter if it's Republican or Democrat, neither entity has been able to get it right. We have this process. We have individuals who are coming to America for a good reason. As you know, we've talked about in my past interviews, I have the distinct pleasure of welcoming groups from around the world to the state capitol on behalf of the Speaker. People from the Congo, people from different parts of Russia, people from Australia. They've come and they love coming here because not only our capital is so beautiful, but because of the fact that America is a beacon of freedom and it's a beacon of opportunity. And these individuals who are leaving, the majority, the high majority of them, are leaving because it just got unsustainable to live in the country they're at. They're coming here for the same reason your ancestors, my ancestors, your ancestors came here, was for a new opportunity and a new beginning. And it's incumbent upon us to continue to as Americans, to keep our arms open and to help these individuals, because many of them have not only acclimated well into our society, but have become integral members of our society. They are taxpayers too. People have no idea. Most people think these illegals, as I call them, or undocumented, as I call them, are just here for a free ride, and that's not the case at all. They're here to create a new life and to be a part of our economy.
Well, I would say on your website, Sarah, for the national, your whole group, one of the biggest success stories, John and I will remember, but you're a lot younger, is the Vietnamese boat people. Back in the 70s, it was in the news constantly for a long time, and they settled all over America, but particularly my sister lives in Houston, and she was telling me so that's a big success story. So your organization, U.S. Committee for Refugees and Immigrants, tell us a typical scenario, how you would help a family or a person, or perhaps where they might be fleeing from, as John said. Yeah,
right. So the three countries that we're typically settling from are Democratic Republic of Congo, Afghanistan, and Burma.
That's in the Albany area? In the Albany area,
okay. Yes. And the work to begin resettling begins long before the family or individual actually arrives in Albany. We secure housing, secure apartments for the family or person. We furnish it. We have scores of volunteers throughout the community who come in and move furniture and hang curtains and turn bed sheets down. We pick them up from the airport once they arrive. Bring them to their homes, make sure they know how to use the appliances if they are not familiar with them, emergency services, how to call 911, all of that. And we also have community orientation programs that teaches them about the community, about laws. We enroll them in English classes, and most importantly is set them up with employment services. And so we put them in jobs so they're able to be self-sufficient and support their families and become these thriving members of our community.
So the people you're talking about, are they refugees or immigrants?
Yeah, so that scenario that I talked about are refugees.
Okay.
Are refugees.
So do you know why someone from the Congo or Afghanistan, because you talked to them, why did they choose Albany, do you know?
There must be the legislative leadership.
The strong advocacy for them.
There you go.
Either the luck of the draw, or they have a U.S. tie here, so they have a friend or a family member that's already here, and obviously it's good to have a support system, so if you can set somebody up in a place where they already have a system, the better.
Well, I would say I was telling Sarah before you came, John, that in the library here we have people from all over the place. I mean, many immigrants, one of the first things they do is come and get a library card after your services.
Yeah.
So what? You help set people up, and you're not a government agency. You're a nonprofit group. You have a lot of volunteers. It's refugees.org. It'll be on the screen, but people can find the Albany office in there because you guys are national. what are some of the things people, or how many volunteers do you have? Your staff is like 12, you told me.
Yeah, we have about 12 full-time staff in our Albany office. I couldn't even tell you the number of volunteers.
Okay,
We have so many. It's a wonderful part of the community. We have administrative volunteers who staff our front desk. We have refugee mentors who take people to their doctor appointments or help them get a library card.
Okay.
We have housing helpers who set the homes up. The list goes on and on of how many people we have. So.
Okay, and then, so John, I don't know how aware are you of, you've mentioned a few things you guys do. What are some of the other?
It's interesting, and I kind of look at the refugee center as being like the welcome wagon, right? They basically help people get acclimated, but you have to look at how the community is responding. For example, here in the Albany School District, I don't think people realize they have 52 different languages spoken amongst the students, those 10,000 students here in the city of Albany. A couple of years ago, with the arrival of the new superintendent, they took the approach of taking one school from the North Albany Academy, which serves K-5, but also for ages 6 to 12. They created a transitional school. And basically, it was a very well thought out process that was debated, that many of these refugees, they don't speak English. They need to have a little bit of time, and it's a 2-year transition period where they're kind of separated out of the regular student population just to help them become acclimated to the language and the process of education. And then they move and transition back into the middle or high school, depending on what age they come into. And as originally there was a little bit of resistance, like, geez, is that a good idea? Because we don't want them to be separated from society. But at the same token, because of the pressures in the education system in regards to performance and evaluations, understandably, if you and I just left today and went to Italy, we probably would have a hard time understanding the education system, unless you've been to Italy a lot and you speak it. I don't speak it, so although I'm half Italian, I don't speak it. So, I think it's a good example of how we respond to change. And sometimes people don't always respond too well with it, but I do believe that the change that the district made will serve these children and their families well going into the future. It's interesting, and I'm going to digress a second. A little bit of, it's not controversy, it's time overdue. We passed a DREAM Act recently in the legislature, which allows...
In the New York State.
New York State legislature, which allows undocumented immigrants to have access to apply for TAP, which is financial assistance for higher education. And it also allows for them, their families, to establish 529 savings accounts to help them save money for education. And it's interesting, in some pockets of my district, I feel like, well, how can you give free college to...
Was that a contentious debate?
It was contentious. It was contentious.
Oh, okay.
Not with me, but with some people in my community and some of the more... Because they just aren't aware of the fact that, number one, you already have these children in your public schools and you're paying taxes to the tune of $22,000 a head on all students, and they're included. And number two, these kids are participating in our sports programs, in our school dances, in our school plays. They're part of our community already. Why would we not want them to also be successful too? And that's the reason why we support this DREAM Act. But the part that should be the real interesting part here, I mentioned the 529 program. That leads into a larger discussion about the fact that many of these individuals, once they're set up with jobs, are more than happy to pay taxes and have taxes taken out of their checks. They are taxpayers to the tune of over $1 billion a year in revenue to the state of New York. That's why I supported the DREAM Act, because these individuals should have the opportunity to have access to higher education, albeit it's a smaller population, just as much as everybody else. And unfortunately, there's a mindset that feels that we should suppress that population, which history has shown suppressing of any population hasn't really made for a strong America.
I know, here at the library, I see a lot of immigrants that are coming in to get the tax form.
They are.
They're very like...
And what they have, they don't have a Social Security number, they don't have a taxpayer ID number, they have an ITIN, which is an individual tax identification number. But it gives them the opportunity to be participating in our democracy. And I think sometimes that gets lost, just like the other discussion about driver's licenses.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Now, they're going to drive the car one way or the other. I'd rather have them insured in case there's an accident, right? It makes for a larger pool of people supporting the system.
So, Sarah, the groups you help, is it mainly individuals? Is it families? I mean, what's the percentage, or is it just everybody?
It's everybody, honestly. We have plenty of individuals and single refugees coming, as well as families, and that's our refugee program. But the other part of our organization is serving the immigrant population, so not only refugees. And my legal program helps people bring family members over to join them, helps apply for green cards, helps apply for citizenship, and you see absolutely everybody coming through our doors.
And then you're the only attorney. I think I have a list here of, you do things like helping them get green cards.
Yeah, we help them apply for green cards for their lawful permanent residency, renew their green cards if that's expired or going to expire. Like I said, family reunification. So if they have a family member outside in another country, we can reunite them. Travel documents, which we're getting really into the weeds of what we do, but it's a really wonderful program that serves the entire immigrant population.
And you have a lot of agencies and groups that I guess are your partners, you could say. Who are some of them, and what do they do?
Yeah, so RISE is a wonderful partner agency located in Albany, Albany proper. I'm new to the area.
It's Albany, that's okay.
The capital region. So RISE is a wonderful partner, always has been. They have wonderful programs for children and adults and English classes, and we started a job club with them to teach immigrants and refugees how to interview, the interviewing skills and filling out applications and in that culture. So it's been a really wonderful.
So, and what are some of the levels? I mean, I think I've seen people here at the library trying to help people, obviously from other countries. There seems to be a wide variety. You have everyone from people with PhDs in their home country to people who made manual laborers, or whatever the term is. Is there a wide variety of job skills? Or?
Absolutely. So you see everybody from surgeons to somebody who have been born in a refugee camp that has never gone to school. So they're maybe illiterate in their own language as well as English. So there's another group of immigrants called special immigrant visas. So these people are coming from not so much Iraq anymore, but Iraq and Afghanistan, who served as workers with the U.S. government or U.S. companies in those countries. They may have served as interpreters or in the embassies and whatnot. And so with a lot of those people, you see higher education levels as well.
And what kind of jobs do you try to help people find? Just whatever they
yeah, I mean, in the beginning, whatever's open.
You would take any job you could.
And honestly, a lot of refugees specifically are not able to work. They're not allowed to work in refugee camps. So when they arrive in the U.S., they are ready to go and they are ready to work and happy to. So they jump into anything that we can get them. We try and fit their skills as best as we can. And we have a wonderful 5-year program where you see people in entry-level positions, maybe housekeeping, and they progress out of those jobs and into their dream jobs. It's really wonderful.
Now, on the website, there's this little thing on here. Maybe this is a dilemma for some, but it says, return, remain, resettle. Can you explain it? Do some people, I don't want to say, do some people want to go back? Or?
Yeah, so there's priorities of what's best for, what somebody would want to do. So if they are fleeing Liberia from a civil war in 1998, and the civil war ends, and they still have all of their family in Liberia, well, a lot of people are returning to Liberia. So that's the return portion of it. Return, remain, resettle. So remaining, there's, let's stick with the Liberian example. They're in a refugee camp in Ghana. They have been in the refugee camp for 15, 20 years, and they're integrated into the Ghanaian community. So they may remain in Ghana. And resettle is the last option, which is resettling in a different country, such as the U.S.
Now, do some people, can you stay in a refugee camp for 10, 15 years?
Unfortunately, the sad reality is that many people spend their entire lives in a refugee camp. Less than 1% of refugees are able to be resettled into another country.
And then John, again, upcoming, I don't know, this session, I don't know if you mentioned some other things that the legislature may or may not be doing to help organizations like the committee here.
Right now, our main focus is the budget right now.
Okay.
Right now, that was not included in the executive's proposal, so we're pushing back on that and trying to make sure that we do our job and advocate for the resources to help the process. Same token, it was interesting. I was interviewed last week at a business function, and they said, of all the socialized bills, as I like to call them, that have been passed this first month, which one do you think is going to have the greatest impact on New York? And I said, the DREAM Act will. I said, we are going to invite more people to be part of our success in this country. We're going to give them the opportunity to higher education, to be our next engineers, to be our next mayors or legislators. And I think that's the important process, is that we need to continue to support higher education for all individuals living in this country. So that's a critical need.
I don't know. I know there was a big thing made. The new Congress has many people who are immigrants in the new Congress. I don't know, New York State Legislature.
New York State Legislature, we've got a lot of firsts, right? We have the highest number of women legislators now than ever before. I think it's 52 out of 150 members, which is, when I first started, it was in the low 30s or 40s. So in 7 years, it's gone up dramatically, which is good. And the New York State Legislature is very diverse in many aspects. We have many born citizens in many other countries, whether it was Albania, whether it's in the Congo, whether it's in Nigeria. There's just
so the New York State Legislature has people from all over.
Yeah, we live here in the capital region.
I know.
We're kind of we're kind of boring, right? But guess what? We're not as boring as you think.
When you're out and about, in your district or New York State, do you see a lot of these?
Yeah, well, Rensselaer has a very large Burmese population living over there in Rensselaer, right across the river. Absolutely. City of Albany, very diverse. And it's even, even little old Cohoes, which is like the northern part of Albany County, is starting to see a little bit of diversity. Not much, only 5-6%. But my assembly district is 30% diverse, and it includes not only minorities, but many other ethnicities, which is great. It adds to the variety of our community and the strength.
All right, so Sarah, how would people get involved if they want to help your group? Just go to the website and find the Albany office, or?
Yeah, it should be pretty user-friendly. I'm on there quite often. You can visit refugees.org and find our Albany office. You can call us. I think we have a
It'll be on the
up
screen.
there. Yeah. We always need volunteers. We're always looking for people to partner with refugees and mentor them through their integration. Front desk volunteers and patient navigators to learn the healthcare system. And specifically monetary donations, honestly.
Okay. There is a spot you can donate on here.
Yeah, excellent. Yeah. Specifically, we have a van that, we use for transportation and picking people up, and that has died recently. Okay. So we're looking to increase funds to get this van to help people.
All right. Well, it sounds like your organization does great work. It really does. And again, I've been around for 100 years. So let me just end on this. I'll ask you, and I'll ask John, but I don't want to get all political or anything. But would you say the Statue of Liberty's flame is still shining brightly for people that want to come here?
I have never seen it so bright than when I came to Albany and seen this community and what the volunteers do. So, yes.
Okay, very good answer. And John?
I second that notion. Absolutely. No doubt about it.
Well, it's
Lady
funny.
Liberty's arms are still open.
Well, I'm saying, I think people forget sometimes we are, as the old phrase was, a nation of immigrants.
We are.
And refugees, I guess, if you go back.
Yeah.
So thanks for coming.
Thank you.
And John, we'll probably see you again sometime.
Sounds great.
And we'll see you next time on Getting to Know You.